Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sidebar podcast. And we have a fun episode today, the Bible and the Grammys.
Yeah.
We watched the Grammys. We did research, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Not everyone actually saw the Grammys, so we'll try to give a little bit of context. But we did watch the Grammys, all like 3 hours or something
so
of it. It
long.
was so long, way too long.
Yeah.
That's another part of the podcast, probably. But you two are here. I'm here with Cynthia and Danielle. What are your guys' thoughts on the Grammys? And the Bible.
And the Bible. Yes, be sure to incorporate the Bible. I loved some moments of it.
Okay.
Other moments, I will say, I was very bored. But,
That's fair.
you know, there's different performances.
Yeah.
I think my favorite performance had to be probably Olivia Rodrigo. We've talked about her on here, and hers was very good.
Isn't that the most listened to episode we've done anytime recently? I
Yes,
think I saw
that one.
that.
Wow. Traitor.
Olivia Rodrigo. What
A
do
lot
you know?
of people want to know about cheating, you know? And then, of course, Billie Eilish's Rain performance. That was really cool.
It was.
Yeah.
How do we do that at Hillside? Never mind.
Don't give anybody
We'll
any
do it. We'll sing
ideas.
Oceans and make it work.
Easter's 8 days away. We could probably pull that off still, right? It's not too late.
I think Joel would have a hard time. I don't know. I really didn't have a favorite performance because when I listen to the Grammys and I watch it, I'm just looking for different things and different elements and who's celebrating who and things like that. So I just appreciated the whole experience.
Yeah, interesting. I got to watch it with 2 of our children, so that's always interesting to look through their lens. If I'm having to pick one, it's probably just 100% off of just pure talent, and it's John Legend. At a piano with
great.
his voice and his musicality, just wow. Then he brought in that old spiritual Go Down Moses and put it sort of with his song Free. And singing Rain Down Freedom, and it was sort of related to the Ukraine moment. So it was really powerful. But there's so many moments that were like cringe moments for me also. So the weird thing is I a little bit in quick preparation, honestly, I didn't do a lot of like preparation for this other than watch the Grammys. But someone was talking about how the Grammys was like, it was old. It was old for Gen Z. It was a bunch of millennials. And I was like, that's so fascinating because I'm the old guy. And so a lot of my perspectives are old perspectives. But they were talking about like they feel like they've lost maybe some of the earliest generations beside an Olivia Rodrigo. But even her maybe fits a little bit of a, for their review, safe category. And I was like, this is so interesting.
Wow.
Everybody's got opinions and, you have to take them all with a grain of salt. So there's a caveat. These are our opinions. Take them with a grain of salt.
For sure.
These are just opinions. But I do think there are cultural elements. There are things that, as a Christian, as individuals, women, as a pastor, as a man, watching the Grammys, there are insights, I think, that sort of make us learn things that maybe we would lean in to appreciate, or that we would also say, whoa, let's lean out and have some discernment in this. It's not just consume as pure entertainment. You've got to have some wisdom when you're navigating it. So what are some of those things maybe that stuck out to you, either one of you, as lessons, as takeaways, things you appreciated, things you're like challenged by?
I think, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, Chris Stapleton?
That sounded perfect.
Chris Stapleton.
Beautiful. So when he got up there to receive his Grammy, and he was talking about how he was missing his 4-year-old's twin's birthday to be there. And he was just talking about all the sacrifices that he had to make and how it hurts sometimes to make these type of sacrifices. And immediately, I mean, that turned personal for me.
Absolutely.
Because for those who don't know, my husband is a traveling touring musician. And so that was our life for a long time. And it was just like, is he going to be around for holidays? Are we going to spend those special moments together? And then all the other things that go along with touring and like the temptation, like it's just the industry, it's crazy. But it wasn't until I started seeing the effects that his secular career had in the body of Christ. people started being drawn to Frank because something was different. And so when you go into those environments of darkness, it's either two ways. It's either you're going to succumb and be like everybody else, or you're going to stand out and be different, and people are going to be like, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get that? And then the more conversations he started having with different musicians, and then they're like, oh, God is what's different about you. And so just being able to use that. And so I was like, that's when the sacrifices make sense. That's when I understand it.
That's good.
And so just looking at all of those people who work so hard to get to where they are, I just understand it on another level. So I was like, I get it.
To admire somebody from a distance is not to understand the sacrifice that's involved. And there is a price to pay, no matter what you do. But there's a price to celebrity. There's a price, and you're talking again about a person who's a phenomenal musician, very popular. Your disciplines and your sacrifice are part of what gets you to a certain place, and that's often unseen.
Right.
You see the 3.5, 4 minutes on a stage. You don't see all the stuff that's behind that.
Right.
Yeah, for better or worse in that.
And then John Baptiste had a quote. I'm sorry, I want to say this.
Well, in your notes, I thought you said John the Baptist. I was like, I missed John the Baptist on the Grammys.
John Baptiste, that's his last name, right?
Yeah,
okay.
sounds right.
I think it's granted. That was the first.
Batiste.
I don't think there's a P. I don't know.
That's the first time I've heard
The
of
new
him.
John the Baptist. Okay.
Don't say that. I'm not saying that. But he said, there is no best musician, et cetera, et cetera. The creative arts are subjective and reach people at a point in their lives when they need it most. Then he goes on to thank God and his family. And then he says that he works on his craft every day. It's more than entertainment for him. It's a spiritual practice. And I'm like, that's the part that people don't see. Like, it is dedication. Like, when I used to actively be a musician, like, you practice for like 6 to 8 hours a day. Frank practices about 8 to 10 hours a day still.
Drums.
Unfortunately.
Let's just be real. Drums.
Yes, drums. But it is, and depending on like your mindset, like that's like your meditation, like you feel at one with God, because that's like the craft, the gifting that he's given you to cultivate. And so I was like, you don't hear it put that way often.
That's good. Okay, so let me jump in there, because my takeaway, and again, I'm an old guy now. I'm watching this, and I felt like a grandfather. I remember the good old days when at award shows, people actually thanked people. And so there was a glaring, I can't tell you that I've watched any award show for this length. I did it, really stayed in it so we could have something to talk about, because we think these cultural moments are important. They publicized this for months and months and months about this being a big deal. It was shocking, the absence of gratitude in there. So you picked up on one I didn't even catch, but Olivia Rodrigo got up there. I think it was Song of the Year. So that's a whole other tangent. Like, what do these people win? Record of the Year, album, it all sounds the same to me. And she said, I want to thank my mom and dad. And it was like, how old is she? 19, 20?
19.
And so obviously there's, she's still younger. But she thanked her mom and dad, and I was like, whoa, somebody actually gave gratitude. Back in the old days, there was the obligatory thank God that everybody seemed to give. And now there seemed to be just this complete absence of that. And Snoop Dogg had a line, I think it was a song years ago, I want to thank me for believing in me.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And it was like, is that what gratitude is? Yeah, it's like that's precipitating pride. It's like this idea of, no, I did this on my own. And for me, it was even light in the midst of darkness, being focused on gratitude for a minute, where like in 1 Thessalonians, Paul says, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. A biblical principle is that we are created to be people of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just Christians. I think that's everybody. Like, there's something about the human heart that is supposed to have gratitude, because none of us get to where we are all by ourselves. We have other people in our lives. There's other circumstances or whatever. And so to not see that now on something, and I feel like in our world, it's not uncommon to be at lunch and a waiter, a waitress, a server, refills your water, whatever. And just for people not to say thank you anymore. hold the door, and people don't say thank you or whatever. It's just like,
Yeah.
where has that gone?
That is very
And so for
true.
me, the Grammys was an example of like, that's sort of a lost art in our culture. And to see like on one of the biggest stages, really all of this is I'm just taking credit for what I've done. And I'm thinking it's sort of interesting because for the first time they brought up like stage and production managers who are behind the scenes to give them moments. And yet those moments were scripted. There wasn't anything much. There was an overwhelming lack in the acceptance of thanks. And I just thought, isn't that interesting? It was sort of even about me. So the other example was that, and I mean, it's so laughable and they have so much swag, it's hard to resist. But like Silk Sonic, so they come up there, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, and they're talking about, we're just trying our best to stay humble. And I'm like, except for you've choreographed your acceptance. You're just putting on a show even when you receive the award. It's all staged and we're trying to stay humble. And it's like your actions are betraying your words. There's this thing that's going on. So for me, it felt like, man, this stark example of pride, of trying to just take credit for our own stuff and not realizing how many people contribute to the success to get there. Not to mention the fans who actually just even spend money to get you that career.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, come on.
But I did hear a lot more people be thankful. For one, the one that stuck out to me, I don't even know his name. Granted, I don't know a lot of
I'll
these
just help you this
people's names.
entire time.
Kendrick Lamar's nephew.
Oh, Baby Keem?
Yep, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
But he
reminds
got
me of another
up-
topic. We had a conversation. How many new names can we come up? Baby or Lil or Little or...
Listen, I can't with these names. I'm sorry, guys, but your names are crazy.
They're just using generators now. Yeah. New names.
Right? But he got up and thanked like all the women in his family. And I was like, I didn't hear anybody else do that. Because like most of the time, like those women, like they're the ones that's pushing you to take lessons. They're the one, like, especially culturally, at least in the Black community, there's a lot of absentee fathers.
Totally.
And so the Black mothers and aunties and sisters, they're like, okay, you need to do this. You need to be meeting with this producer. Like, and he like took the time to say, hey, I need to thank all the women in my life. So I was like, that really stuck out to me because you're the only person that said that.
You know why it stuck out to you? You're proving my point for me because it's so rare. It's so rare.
Yes. And also, no.
She said, I hear you, but I don't.
However, nevertheless.
And also, Silk Sonic, what's their name?
It's Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak.
And Anderson .Paak. Silk Sonic is the band, for those of you who also don't know, like me.
There you go.
I think their little bit was just so funny. Like, it reminded me of my Uncle Junior. Sorry, family who's watching this. But
Can we meet Junior sometime?
Bring him on.
the guy, when he had on the wig, like, that's his costume. My Uncle Junior looked like that in real life, guys. And it's so hilarious.
That's so
but,
great.
That moment is just like, when you think of, a lot of them came from absolutely nothing. And so to make it to some place like the Grammys, like sometimes it's like, yes, overconfidence, but it's like, we never thought we would be here. And we're here. We absolutely had nothing. We came from nothing. So I kind of understand it on a different level where it's like, yeah, that took a lot of extra work on top of extra work to get the recognition that you have right
Anderson
now.
.Paak alone, when I was researching him for our Bruno Mars episode, he witnessed his father beat his mother when he was 8 years old, go to prison, die in prison.
Yep. Wow.
Then his mom died when he was, I want to say, 17 in high school.
Yeah.
And then he got married, had a kid, lost his job, lived homeless with his wife and kid for a while.
Yeah.
So crazy.
So like that's such a story. And when they get something like this, like they're just so goofy. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yep.
Yes.
I didn't see it as lack of gratefulness, but I do understand your point.
Yeah.
Not saying that.
No,
it's
I think
but
we
yes.
have to ask this question. It's not. It is profound. This episode's becoming the story behind the music, but also it's not just when you get there. It's what do you do when you get there,
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
how do we steward that moment to make it more than something just about ourselves,
For sure.
but to make it about others. And so I completely agree. Like they're so off the chart of cool factor, it's not even funny. But the dilemma is how they leverage that back to a few episodes ago, a Bruno Mars episode. It's like, come on, man, seriously? That's what you leverage it for? You know, more,
For sure.
whatever we talked about in that episode of, you know, pleasure, sex, everything like that. It's like, there's got to be more than this.
Yep.
Okay, Danny, save the best for last. I mean, our resident expert on the Grammys.
Great. Well, similar to you guys, I also noticed the producers of the shows and the costume people coming out. And I don't know if you noticed the first one that came out. I want to say she was for Billie Eilish. She was shaking.
Oh, totally.
And for me, as like Enneagram, whatever, like Enneagram 2, like usually behind the scenes, you're not shown on stage.
Except for podcasts.
Yeah, you know, when you randomly get to do the podcast. To have that moment to come out and be like, you know, I actually do a lot of work for this person. You guys see the performance, you see the show, you hear the music. I'm doing all the back work that nobody thinks about. That was like, I feel like gave a new light to those people.
I thought so too. I agree totally.
When people thank people when they get those like awards, you don't even know those people. You can't put a face to those names. It was putting a face to the names that I was like, wow.
And you could see a couple of the performers as those people were introducing them, and it was moving for like Billie Eilish. You could catch a glimpse of her like almost smiling in pride for her friend.
You know, you think about it, those people tour with them. They're with them all the time.
It doesn't happen without them.
Yeah, right. The other one was also John Batiste when he said art is subjective. I studied art in college, and that was the whole basis is like, you can grade me for my art piece, but at the end of the day, I made it. I get to say what it's like. And so that was funny that he said that. There's no such thing as a best artist. There's no such thing as a best song because music meets people when they need it. And like that was so eye-opening, and I immediately was like, that's God. Like God meets you when you are ready, like to receive. And so thinking about how many times has God like met people in their lowest point, sometimes in their highest point, like there's all perfect timing. That was one of the moments that like I loved.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was good.
You got some other things in here, Danny. Anything else that you would say jump out at you?
Well, we are a church, so we should probably talk about one of the biggest moments in 20 years. Maverick City Music performed live. They weren't in the...
For like 30 seconds at least.
Know. But that's big for us.
No, absolutely.
We're like, we sing Gyra.
We know about them. Yeah.
But they also won their first Grammy as well, and they got their little spotlight. And I think what was cool was they acknowledged it too. Like Trevor Noah acknowledged that was Maverick City Music. And like a lot of people were also feeling it, like in the crowd, like raised hands, almost looking like they were actually worshiping. And you were sitting there going, this is Vegas?
We're
like,
trying to figure out, did they bring different crowds for each artist in that moment?
The Christians.
I think that's what they did. Though. Yeah.
I sort of hope so because
when they had the Latin crowd out there,
were people dancing.
Yeah, it was a different crowd. I think.
And you know, real Christians can't salsa dance.
Well, I was gonna say Cynthia, are you gone? I've done seat fillers. I don't know if you guys know what that is, like for award shows. So I thought maybe those are just really good seat fillers that like know to raise their hands for Maverick City.
They're the A-list seat fillers.
No, they were going forth though. They were like
going forth. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. But part of why we're doing this is to take moments that are cultural moments in our society and say, why does it matter? Like as a Christian, is it just turn the TV off and don't watch that junk? Or are there moments culturally that are worth celebrating? Moments that are saying, celebrating to my example, John Legend's artistry in that moment is not a condonement of every single thing that happened in the Grammys.
Right.
You know, to have this discerning sort of distinction to be able to say, how do we engage in culture but not let culture shape us?
Right.
And how do we watch things like this and we can appreciate some moments and also have the wisdom to say, hey, let's talk about that. Or, you know, my kids are older now, so it doesn't feel like I have to do as much of that. I was watching it with them, and I had our oldest explling to me half the stuff that, like Danny, I'm like, I would not have a clue what you're talking about. I wouldn't even know why I should be mad at Little Nas X until she told me what that video was about. And then I'm like, turn it off now. This is ridiculous. But just finding the discernment, and like, I think that's one of the greatest needs for Christians is discernment. We have a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have a tendency to escape and push away. But I think there's a model that says we've got to be able to still be shaped by Christ, but engage the world and be able to be exactly what you said, Cynthia, a light in a dark place. And our world's going to know us by the way we live, the attitude we carry ourselves with, the words we use. And so Frank, your husband, has been that kind of a light in the midst of this exact. And the truth is, on a performance like that, there were many, many Christians involved. It doesn't matter if we know them or not, but their lights are shining in ways that may not get the platform, but they're being faithful in the unique ways God has called them, wired them, etc. And so to watch something like this, this is just a little snippet of us saying, you know, there's a little bit of discernment, there's a little bit of wisdom, there's a little bit of critiquing, not condemning. But critiquing involved. Anything else that stood out to either one of you? You both have a lot more notes in there.
I was just thinking about Harvey Mason Jr.'s quote. When
He's the president of the Academy, I believe.
He said, "Music matters. It helps to change the world. Music serves the hurting and the hopeful. It serves the change makers. It serves the pursuit of justice and recognition, of respect and healing, of unity and love." And when I just listened to those words, I immediately just thought about Hillside on Sunday mornings and how we get people who speak different languages. I mean, I get them upstairs in kids ministry all the time, and their parents go downstairs and they come up, and I try to find somebody who can connect us to like be a language. What is the
Use
word?
a translator on the app, and those don't work fast enough.
Oh my goodness, yes, we've done all
we
those
slow
things.
down translator.
Yes, but I've seen some of those same families consistently come back every week and don't understand anything that they're saying, but they relate to the music. And they said they feel the worship. They feel God through the music and don't even understand the words.
Whoa. What does that mean about the sermon?
Hey, let's just pick this up.
You're doing great.
You're fine. You're doing great. But
No, that's so true.
Like, how beautiful is that? They can feel that connection just through music alone because of God.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like music in arts is always going to be that. I mean, I wrote down in my notes that BTS didn't win a single Grammy, but the most talked about person after the Grammys.
No, during it.
And during,
I was on Twitter saying what's trending about this,
Yeah.
and it was more BTS than anything
I was
else.
trying to scroll really
and I'm
quick.
like, you know, so a Korean boy band is dominating the trending. The Latin, who was the guy?
Balvin.
Yeah, J Balvin opens it up, and so it really is sort of a picture of how our world is globalized. In L.A. No, Las Vegas. In Las Vegas awards show, that just has really this picture of the melting pot of where things are. And we've got to understand that. Our world, so as the old guy here, our world is not the world I grew up. We're not 20 years ago. We're 2022. And the time we wake up to that and say, what is God doing, inviting us into? How do we stay faithful to Him? And how do we love? And how do we lead, but also take a stand for truth and for what's holy and righteous and all of those kinds of things? And so easier said than done.
For sure.
But I think it is the call God has on our life. And so this is the Bible and the Grammys.
And the Grammys.
Honestly, let's be honest, it was a little bit more Grammys than it was Bible this time.
We sprinkled it in.
Okay, we sprinkled it in.
I think so.
But here's the thing, maybe leave with a challenge of gratitude. A challenge to be thankful, a challenge maybe to even think about who's helped you get where you are today. Who's somebody that you owe a text, a phone call, a coffee to just say thank you because it matters so much. I made the whole challenge my own personal challenge, but I think it matters so much. So what if we walked away with that kind of challenge? Let's express the gratitude to people who have helped us along the way.
For sure.
Okay, that's it for this episode, right?
Yep.
You have anything to close? No famous closing saying. Okay, thanks everybody for being with us. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.